Good day, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of Have You Seen It Lately, the DJB production show where we talk about great old movies that we love from our youth up into our 20s, basically when we were old enough to know better but still too young to care. I am joined, if I didn't say it, I'm sorry, still kind of new to this. I'm Matt Sunner, your host, and joining me, my co-host, the creator of DJB Productions, my good friend Danny J. How you doing, brother?
Good morning.
I'm all over the place today. And now, again, for those of you who are just joining the show, again, as we mentioned it in episode 1, we had a lot of setbacks and delays. Danny J is very busy with 3 other shows, so we're just kind of squeezing this in. So some of this few episodes are very, very rushed. And so we're going to be having some technical issues and some glitches, which will be fun because you'll get to see us in the early days when we kind of maybe suck a little bit. But hopefully we're going to grow and make everything better as we fall into our rhythm. So again, thank you for joining us on this show. Today, we're going to be talking about what ranks as one of my personal favorites. I think Danny J, at one point when we were talking, said it may be his favorite all-time movie, The Cannonball Run.
Yes. What a great movie. An all-star cast. Comedy galore. And let me tell you something. You do not get physical comedy like this in any way, shape, or form. There was a movie, which I can't exactly remember the name of it, that was kind of similar to something like this, and it wasn't anywhere near as funny because the cast wasn't anywhere near as funny.
No,
You're never gonna get
it was Speed Zone. It was Speed Zone. Had John Candy in it.
No.
I'm
talking about the one that had Mr. Beam in it, and it had the guy.
Yeah.
It was like Rat Trap or Rat Race.
Rat Race.
Yeah, Rat Race, which was a funny movie. Don't get me wrong; it was a funny movie, but it was not this. This formula has never been duplicated.
No, and this is, again, this is why you'll never duplicate it. You have to really look at the cast. You don't see casts put together like this anymore.
Nah.
Burt Reynolds, Dom DeLuise, Farrah Fawcett, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Adrienne Barbeau. Then you also have legends of sports and music. Country singer Mel Tillis.
Yes.
Terry Bradshaw.
Yes.
Joe Klecko from the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yes.
This was a movie that was written and directed by Hal Needham, the man that brought you Smokey and the Bandit. He was a stuntman. He got into writing and directing movies. Funny enough, there was actually at one point an interview with Burt Reynolds. Burt Reynolds really didn't want to do this movie because he was feeling he was getting tied into too many kind of car chase type movies. But he did it as a favor to Hal Needham because they were longtime friends. Actually, Hal Needham was living in a guest house on Burt Reynolds' ranch when he came up with Smokey and the Bandit. But Hal Needham said, "Come on, do another one for me. Really appreciate it. It'll be a big boon." And Burt said, "Hey, you'll keep my shooting schedule limited to whatever, and I'll do the movie, and I'll do as a favor for you." But you also had auto sports legend writer Brock Yates in there. He was the guy that you see when the race starts. He is the race official. He is the starter, and he actually raced in one of the original Cannonball runs. It was the Cannonball Baker Sea to Shining Sea Road Rally, whatever, and it was introduced. I can't remember who Cannonball Baker was. I'd read about it at one point, but he was again a motorsports figure, and they created the original real Cannonball Run to basically protest the national 55-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Right.
Where most of the country was going to a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit on the highway. That was kind of created as a protest, going I bet you we can get across the country faster and we can still be safe about it. And they could literally take any route they wanted across the country. And it was just literally a timed race. You started, whoever covered the distance in the quickest amount of time, that's your winner.
Right.
And,
well, what? We mentioned some of the cast in there, but there's also Roger Moore.
Roger Moore, again, I didn't get to him yet, but Jamie Farr.
Jamie Farr, another one, playing great characters. Jackie Chan.
Jackie Chan, one of his first American films.
Yes. Yes, in this movie, what a just a overall, and then a lot of character actors from the 70s and 80s that were in there. But like you just
Bert
get
Convy.
Yes, I mean
Bert
you get
Convy in there as well.
You get overwhelmed almost by how much star power is in this movie. Everybody was a star.
Yeah,
everybody was somebody, and everybody played an amazing part in this movie.
Yeah, even the doctor that they had in the ambulance, Jack Elam, I believe is his name. He was a big star, like westerns from like the 60s and the
I was watching.
50s.
It's funny you say that because I was watching. I'm a big fan of The Rifleman, right? And I was watching an episode of The Rifleman, and I said, "Man, this guy was a bad guy, right? This guy's eyes were bulging out of his head." I said, "He looks familiar. He looks like." I said, "He looks like that guy from Cannonball Run." And then I looked closer. I said, "Holy shit! It's the guy from Cannonball Run." You know?
Yeah.
You forget.
And that was, again, it was a great zany movie, and as you mentioned, Roger Moore was in it, which I loved his character. Roger Moore playing a guy who thinks he's Roger Moore.
Yes.
It's his character name.
No, it goes even deeper. It's Roger Moore playing a guy who thinks he's Roger Moore, who thinks Roger Moore is James Bond.
Actually, is James Bond. He's driving the James Bond DB5, which actually Roger Moore never drove. Roger Moore drove.
That's right.
But Roger Moore never appeared in the DB5. It was Sean Connery. Sean Connery had the DB5. But either way, I mean, he plays his character's name in the movie.
I want to say that out again. He's a guy. What was his name? His real name?
Sidney Goldfarb.
Sidney Goldfarb.
He's basically playing a Jewish guy.
Yes.
Playing a guy who thinks he's a British guy. Who thinks he's
Sidney Goldfarb. Sidney Goldfarb is pretending to be Roger Moore, who Roger Moore is 007 James Bond.
For real.
For real. It's just a great concept.
The DB5, it had all the gadgets from the movie. It had the flippable license plate, it had the smoke screen, it had the oil slick, it had the ejector seat. The only difference is they changed it up from the movie. The ejector seat in James Bond was a push button on the gear selector.
Yes.
And in this movie, it was the cigarette lighter.
Yes.
It was the cigarette lighter because everybody goes
made for a funny scene. It made for a funny scene there.
Which is great because every time you see him, he's got a different hottie in the car. Just some girl. You don't even know how he picked her up, where he picked her up, but every time you see him, he's got a different girl in the car that he just picked up. And they're always wanting to go and like smoke a cigarette. Like, oh, I'm going to light my cigarette. Like, oh, don't touch that. We don't want to leave. We don't want you leaving too soon. And hands him a lighter.
It's funny, but every character, every group of guys, every car, because every car had either 1, 2, or 3 people in it. Every car, it was almost like in professional wrestling of the 80s, where there was this larger life character being entered. You know what I mean? Like from the very beginning of the movie, you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, look at this. And it was just like to see them. And it wasn't how it was shot. It almost looks like you're watching blooper reels of the movie.
Yeah, which they actually did
the magic
during the credits. During the credits, they actually showed you bloopers, which is great because the movie was hysterical. The bloopers were even funnier than the movie.
But you know what, though? If that's the magic of, I don't know if it's just the magic of how the movie was done or if it's the magic of how these actors played together.
Yeah.
Because it literally looked like, we're just doing this thing. Like it did, everything literally looked improv. Everything looked improv.
Yeah, and that was the thing, because again, you had the caliber of stars in this movie. They just did their thing and they played off each other. And it came just so naturally and so fluid. I mean, we've seen a lot of other kind of crazy, parody type movies or slapstick movies that have come along later in like maybe the late 90s, even, early 2000s. Where they try and put this ensemble cast together, and it's like, oh, well, you've seen this guy on SNL or in this movie, and this movie, and this one. They're all funny. They put him in this ensemble cast, and you watch him, and it's like going, you're all trying too hard.
Yes.
It feels forced.
Yes. There was nothing forced about this movie.
No. They were just doing their thing. You have Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise playing JJ McClure and Victor Princey, buddies. They end up coming up with an ambulance. And one of the funny things was focusing on them and how they were kind of coming up with a vehicle. Because when you first see them, Burt Reynolds is working on this hot, Porsche 911 or some other, because again, I forget what some of the racing were, but it was basically based on the 911. And they're going out and they're testing it. And I guess because, the cops knew they were out there, they come up across a bunch of cops and they end up crashing the car into this field and wrecking the car, which is where we get introduced to probably one of the greatest cinematic characters ever and the best, absolutely best superhero that never actually existed, Captain Chaos.
Yes.
The cops come up to the car. Here comes Dom DeLuise popping out of the passenger seat, suddenly in this mask, this cape. And it's like, where did it come from? I mean, it's truly, even like Superman would be saying, how did you change that fast? Popping out, dun, dun, dun.
And Dom DeLuise, at this point in his life, was a fat son of a bitch.
Yes, he was.
A big man.
And just watching him, watching him do that. And it's like, here's a cop going like, I am Captain Chaos. And here's the cop looking at him like, what the hell are you doing? And he's looking at a smile on his face like, hey, fellow crime fighter, been a cop long,
Yeah. It's just a great thing. Dom DeLuise made the movie. He really did. Yeah, he was this. I mean, you could say Burt Reynolds. I mean, honestly, it's surrounded by those two characters.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, they are the anchor point of the movie. They are pretty much the ones you're following.
Dom DeLuise was the movie. I don't think if Dom was not in the movie, I don't think it would have been as funny.
Yeah.
But him and Burt, you could tell, had such a great relationship.
Yeah.
Because I think he just made Burt laugh, regardless of what was going on. And that's the great thing about it too, is that you're like, oh wow, like their chemistry is so off the hook. This looks like they just showed up and nobody hit action. They just started filming and they're just talking. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's the great thing about this movie.
Again, and most of the pairings are like that. I mean,
yes,
we get to see, and again, it has some of the best, dialogue as far as comedic lines and one-liners in the movie. As again, we say, you've got Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr., which the Rat Pack. I mean, just entertainment legends in their own right.
You know what though? We don't have,
and they got to play their characters.
We don't have any way to confirm this at all, but I would guarantee you that a base script was given, and almost every single person went off script. Yeah, I guarantee it. I guarantee it because
I mean, that movie was ad-lib beyond belief.
Honestly, there's no way to write the chemistry that was in this movie. There's no way to write it. You would have to rely on these guys being able to do that. And I think, honestly, and if you think of guys like Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr., respectfully themselves specifically, these are guys that are probably like, hey, dude, I'm Dean Martin. Just tell me what you want me to get across, and I'll do it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm not going to follow your script. I'm going to follow my script.
Yeah.
Just tell me where.
Tell me what point A and point B is.
Where is this going?
I will get you there, and it will be hysterical.
Yeah, and it was. It was. You will cry watching this movie. It is so funny.
When we first see Sammy Davis Jr. and Dean Martin, they're in Vegas talking to sports betting legend and odds maker Jimmy the Greek.
Yes. And
they show up, and they're actually placing a bet. They're placing bets on the Cannonball. So they're placing a bet for them to win the Cannonball run.
Yes.
So you first see Sammy Davis Jr. He's talking to Jimmy the Greek, and he's all like, well, hey, I got as my co-driver, and oh man, I'm forgetting what their two characters' names were in the movie right now. But he basically brings Dean Martin in. He was basically a former Formula One driver or whatever.
Yeah.
Who basically stopped driving because he became a drunk.
Yes.
Yes. So he shows up. He's already half lit. Half shot in the ass, drunk, talking to him. And he's like, I got this guy for my thing, whatever. And he's like, and he's saying, hey, we're going to we got this thing in the bag. because he, you know, and Sammy Davis Jr. pulls up his pendant. You know, he's got his little Star of David pendant because, as most of his people know, Sammy Davis Jr. was Jewish and a great freaking guy. Not only it makes him any different, but it really plays into, as we'll talk about if you haven't seen the movie, the character he plays. Everybody kind of disguises themselves. They kind of come up with these characters because they're trying to think of ways, like, if we get pulled over, what can we, you know, what backstory can we give the cops to kind of get out of tickets and kind of get back on our way or whatever. And he says, you know, hey, we got this in the bag because God is our co-pilot. And
yes,
Dean Martin looks at him because they're driving this hot red Ferrari. They end up dressing. They end up dressing themselves up as priests, which is why it says God's our co-pilot. But here's Dean Martin's character, drunk off his ass, basically saying, he's like, God is our co-pilot. Yeah, God is. He says, remember our car? Lightly smacks him in the face. 2 seats. Where's he going to sit? Where's he going to sit?
Yeah,
and you know, and it's great because then too, you know, they all pull up at this hotel, motel, wherever, you know, this where the whole race is going to start from. You have 2 great side characters, which the one guy you really he actually had a small part in Smokey and the Bandit, played the Georgia State Trooper that you see when Jackie Gleason's police car, when the horn, you know, is stuck, whatever, and he's telling him, you can't drive that piece of shit on my highway, whatever. And God help me, I'm forgetting his damn name. Eventually, we're going to talk about Smokey and the Bandit, and I'll remember his name by that point. I'll look it up. Yes. But his character name was Batman, ironically enough, and his buddy, Mad Dog, driving around in the white GMC dually truck that had the big old Firebird Trans Am Screaming Chicken on the hood, which ironically enough was like that because it was built in 1980. It was for the Indianapolis 500, where the Trans Am was the pace car, and GMC was using supplying all the trucks for the safety crew. So they said that we need the Screaming Chicken out on the track. We're going to put the Screaming Chicken on all the support trucks, so you could actually buy them. You could buy those in the showroom. But either way, they show up in the truck, and they're just these great, really crazy, off the wall characters. Like when they actually show up. Again, one of my favorite scenes in the movie. They show up to the hotel. The parking lot's jammed up. They can't find a place to park. They smash through the front door of the lobby with the truck.
Yes.
And here come Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise. They're driving an ambulance because when they were trying to figure out what kind of car to drive, they get in a boat accident and they're being rushed to the hospital. And the EMT in the back, who was Hal Needham, the director, tells him, oh man, you can get tracked through, you know, the hospital's like 10 miles away. We'll be there in like 5 minutes, you know, because you can get through traffic like shot through a gun. Right. So they like, oh, ambulance. That's what we'll do. And that's, again, Brock Yates. That's what him and his co-driver actually used. It was based on the ambulance they used, and that's something we can talk about, whatever. But either way, they show up. They're in their EMT costumes, you know, and they're like, you know, Mad Dog, you know, parking lot's outside. He's like, oh, brakes went out. Yeah. And next thing you know, here comes the manager running up. Like, what the hell's going on? And Mad Dog, who was driving at the time, says the guy's like, you running this flea joint? Yeah. Where are the hookers?
Yeah.
What? Hookers, man. Where the hookers? And this dude that's trying to stop the cannonball from happening, this guy, Mr. Foyt, whatever, he was on a sofa and he gets knocked onto the sofa, whatever, and he's passed out. So the manager's now talking to Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise like they're actual EMTs. He has no clue. And he's like, this man needs medical attention. He's like, dude, we're on our break.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, they hands him like he gets a bottle of seltzer water because the guy just passed out. Just wake him up and sprays him in the crotch and then sprays him in the face with the seltzer water. To basically wake them up. And it's just, again, one of those great lines. Where are the hookers? And that's a great thing. That's what really makes this movie great because it has so many great one-liners in there.
Mel Tillis and Terry Bradshaw. Mel Tillis being a habitual stutterer when he talks.
Except for when he sang.
Yeah, well, that's a mind thing. It's a funny thing about.
And that's a mind thing. Yeah, it's a crazy thing, but that's.
But he had a major stutter, and when he and Terry Bradshaw were talking, and they were driving a stock car.
Yeah,
right?
it was the Chevy Monte Carlo. It was the Hawaiian Tropic Monte Carlo.
Right.
And in the beginning, when you first see them, they're running from the cops. They crash it into the pool at the motel.
Yes. So then they got to get this car out. They got to get it working again. And then they paint it, but they paint over the car because they want to obviously keep a low profile. One coat of paint. So everything's bleeding through. Yeah, everything's bleeding through. It was funny as anything. But their conversation is funny because Mel tells us just, he's just like, and he's like, perfect. You know what I mean? It's like, but once again, great conversation pieces between these two characters.
And that was the whole thing. I mean, it just cut back and forth, you know. And of course, we had our eye candy, Miss Adrienne Barbeau, film legend, mostly a lot of horror movies.
Who was the other girl? Because the other girl was hot as hell.
And again, you know,
Go on
future
IMDb.
Episodes. You know,
Go on IMDb right now.
IMDb it right now. We'll start making production notes for future episodes.
To get these names down.
Yeah,
Adrienne Barbeau. Let's get them in. They're in a Lamborghini, and Adrienne Barbeau and this other extremely hot woman are in these one-piece zip-up suits, like tight suits. And what's happening is they're driving around and they're really like blowing speed limits and really like running from the cops. But every time they get in the cops, they would unzip their shirt down to show a lot of cleavage and get out of tickets. And that was their thing. And they go to do this at one point, and it's a woman cop.
I don't suppose you got a license tucked down in there, do you, hon?
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it was
yes, officer. Tara Buckman. Tara Buckman was her name.
Let me tell you something. Tara Buckman was ridiculously hot.
Yeah. I mean, it was
ridiculously hot.
Again, you know, as we talked about when we were on doing Capes Not Included, when I talked about, you know, Aaron Gray being, you know, mostly responsible for my satin and spandex fetish, Adrienne Barbeau and Tara Buckman solidified it in that movie. I mean, it was just like, you know, tight, 100%. Shiny. Oh my!
Yeah,
Lord.
tight, shiny spandex zip-up suits, one-piece suits.
And I mean, the opening. I mean, the movie opens with them. The whole opening title sequence is like Nevada Highway Patrol in like an 80 or 81 Turbo Trans Am chasing them.
And that's a great thing too. Like you're talking, you had certain cop cars that were not by any means. They were not using those types of cars.
Well, for some of the states, and again, we saw again later in the 80s, the police departments are doing this. They weren't their standard patrol cars, but a lot of times the highway patrol would, you know, get like one or two of some of these hotter cars if they needed a pursuit vehicle.
Right.
You know, so you weren't seeing the fleets of them. It wasn't like every single cop was driving around in a Trans Am, but there might be one or two, you know, in the department where it's like, okay, we got a high speed pursuit on like an open highway. We need something that can really stay with these guys until we can figure out how to stop them and let us know where they are. So you'd see that occasionally, but of course then too, this movie was all about sports cars. So typically almost every single cop car you saw, unless they were already, you just kind of saw them generally pulled over, you know, for some other reason because of a roadblock or whatever, was usually something hotter. And because again, it made it more believable other than like, you know, okay, there's no way in 2 seconds, you're not even going to see them.
I.e. they were not the Dodge Aries. It was not
we're not the Dodge Aries from the Wraith. But it's like you're hearing like the radio chatter with these cops, you know, over the opening sequence and going like, yeah, we're still in pursuit of that black Lamborghini. And at one point, the Lamborghini pulls off at some point because it ends up behind them.
Yes.
You know, and they're like, we've almost caught him, you know, like, you know, you're almost at the state line. You know, you've been in that pursuit of that Lamborghini for like hours now. It didn't take us this long to catch Dillinger, you know?
Right.
And they're all like, no, we're catching this. I mean, that's dedication to the cop, man. We're catching this damn car. And then, you know, next thing you know, it just goes blowing by him again. And it was just great. I mean,
it's a great movie. But overall, you're talking about a lot of comedic scenes, a lot of and everything was comedic timing between scene. I mean, you can almost equate it to, if you've seen Avengers, the most recent Avengers movie.
Yeah.
Infinity War. Infinity War, where you see a good probably 7 to 10 minutes of each set of characters throughout the movie. Everybody got about 7 to 10 minutes each boom, 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 all in a rapid fire, going back and forth, going back and forth. And that's what they did with this, where everybody got pretty much equal airtime.
Yeah.
In the movie. Everybody had a chance to pretty much interact with each other at one point or another in the movie. The movie itself, like I said, it was just one, you just couldn't wait to hear what was coming out of somebody's mouth next.
Exactly.
It really was. The whole movie was
anticipation.
anticipation. It really was an anticipating movie where you're like, oh my God, I'm on the edge of my seat. Not just because it's exciting, because the one-liners and the comedic timing that's coming out was rapid fire. It was never stopping. There was never a slow part of this movie.
No, it was.
You know what I mean? Even when it was a slow part of the movie, it was still funny. Like when Burt Reynolds is flirting with Farrah Fawcett, you know, and she's playing kind of an airhead screwball.
Yeah, she's like this, you know, really kind of like a hippie almost.
Yeah,
you know, She loves trees, and every time you hear like, oh, and I love trees, you know, it's got all this like ethereal, like, you know, nature.
Yeah.
I mean, that music came from somewhere, and I forget where it was.
Yeah.
But it was popular. I think it was like an old.
You know what it was? It was actually used also in Looney Tunes a lot.
Yeah.
Because it was that nature music.
Yeah.
And but it would be funny because she would go off on these tangents, and like she was so hot in the movie that you're like, whatever you say, but everybody was just like she's a little bit of a whack job, but we're accepting it because of how hot she is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you know, and here's one of the things too, because we're talking about the hotties. During a recent viewing of the movie, I caught something that, and that's another great thing about this movie. So much happens in it, and so there's little subtle things that once you start really watching it more and more and more, you start catching on little small things that maybe you missed,
right?
You know, before, because it is such a subtle little bing. You know, it's like 2 seconds. If you blink, you miss it, kind of thing. There's the one scene when at the bar, when they're all kind of hanging out in the bar the night before the race, and Burt Reynolds, he sees Adrienne Barbeau and Tara Buckman sitting there. He doesn't realize they're racers, so they're like, "Oh, because we need a patient for the ambulance."
Right.
You know, maybe one of them. So they're going over there because they're trying to pick up these girls and figure and be like, "Yo, you want to come ride in, you know, the winning race car, you know, in the Cannonball Run?"
Right.
And they're like, "Yeah, well, we're racers ourselves, you know, and you know, we'll see about who's the winning vehicle. You know, you haven't seen our equipment yet." And Burt Reynolds does that famous, you know, he breaks the fourth wall and kind of raises the eyebrow, like, our equipment, you know, kind of whatever, right. You know, and but he kind of wanders off, and because he sees Farrah Fawcett's character, because he's figuring, okay, so he goes over there, and while he's trying to talk to her, next you know, here comes Dom DeLuise running up to him, and he always refers to Captain Chaos as him. You know, never like him, you know, and he comes running up and says, JJ, again, Burt Reynolds' character, JJ McClure, he's like, JJ, you'll never guess what happened to him. It was so wonderful. And it suddenly dawned on me after watching it, going like, he just got laid. Right. It's like Burt leaves, and it's like going, and you're wondering, like, did he just did he just hook up with the hotties in the Lamborghini? I'm like, I think they're making like he hooked up with the hotties in the Lamborghini. It was so wonderful. You'll never believe it. It was, you know, and it's like, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about him. I want to talk to her. And at that point, she's already wanted, because, like, you know, she's like, okay, they're trying to figure stuff out. She wanders off. It's like, who? Her. And it's like, and he looks over and she's gone. And it's like, man, he's like, now do you want to hear it? No. He's like, yo, find a doctor. You need to find us a doctor for the ambulance. and again, some of the small lines, like he was Dom DeLuise was supposed to get his shrink. His shrink was going to be the doctor for the ambulance. And he's like, well, he's not now going to be the doctor because he got committed. He got caught smoking bananas. You know? And it's like, this is your shrink. This is he's like, apparently he gets very upset when he talks to him. So it's like he's going to see a shrink, and this alter ego, Captain Chaos, he's talked about him. The shrink gets so disturbed about those conversations, he goes crazy. You know, it's like, what does he do around his friends? You know, but again, just so funny. I mean, we could talk about this movie forever.
And then, like you said, it ends. You get the ending of the movie. Everybody, blah 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 blah, clap clap clap, funny funny funny. And then the credits start rolling, and there's more fucking movie.
There's more movie. Yeah, yes. it's all the outtakes. You know, and which funny thing, it must have been a Dom DeLuise saying, because a lot of times when he would screw up a line, the thing that would come out of his mouth is like, your mother's ass. You know?
Yes.
I love that. I remember as a kid, you know, not being around my parents, whenever when I could actually curse, be like somebody going like, your mother's ass. Like,
exactly.
And again, we talked about our first episode, The Wraith. If you haven't seen it, go back and check that out. But the ending bothered me just ever so slightly. Not terrible that it movie, but it's like, you know, they end up having basically a small wreck as they're getting up to the finish line. There's a small accident, whatever, and they're all now running on foot. They've got their time slips, their little punch cards, whatever, from when they punched in at the start, and they got to go hit this time clock to show them that they arrived. Well, Adrian Barbeau gets there first, hits the punch clock, and everybody's all like, "Man, we lost." Well, if you are right there now, again, when they show everybody starting, the Lamborghini leaves about 5 or 6 cars, at least of all the cars they show leaving the starting line, before Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise. So you figure there's probably good at least 15 to 20 minutes between the time the Lamborghini and the ambulance leave.
Right.
They could have run up there, hit that punch clock, even if it was 5 minutes later. You still did it in 10 minutes less than they did.
Right.
You know, it's
which
time.
Which is why a timed race didn't really make much sense, in the sense that because you're already setting people up to not be able to. They would have to make up an exorbitant amount of time.
So I mean,
it's one thing to beat somebody, but it's another thing you have to beat them by like an hour.
Yeah. You got to do it in a shorter amount of time. And it was one of those things where, again, you know, it was just a change, which I wish they had maybe done something a little bit different earlier in the movie, to make it so it's not such a major plot change in the rules. Suddenly, somebody changed the rules of the race in the middle of it.
But I think you forget about it. I think you forget about the rules of the race altogether.
It definitely doesn't ruin the movie, because again, it gives you another added comic thing. Because again, spoiler alert, if for somehow you have not seen this movie. And shame on you. You know, Dom DeLuise, as he's running, he's actually in the lead in this foot race to the time clock, and somebody starts screaming, "My baby's drowning!" because they're next to a marina.
Right.
It's the Portofino Inn in California. My baby's drowning. All of a sudden, he's already as Captain Chaos, you know, and he's looking around. He's like, "Well, I got to save this woman's baby." So he goes running, diving over this hedge into the water, or whatever, and he comes out. This woman's baby is her dog.
Now, keep in mind, this allows Adrian Barbeau to run up and punch the clock. So she passed him and win the race. Right.
So now everybody gets the chance to basically now beat up on Dom DeLuise. Like, what are you doing? Even Farrah Fawcett, who was basically semi-kidnapped to go on initially in a role, because they pick her up and it seems like, oh, get in the ambulance, and they drive off. You know. Right. But you know, she becomes their friend over the course of the race and saying, like, yeah, why'd you do that? We could have won. Because he's like, I saved that woman's dog, you know, all proud of himself. And shit. And they're like, why'd you do that? We could have won. We lost because of you, whatever. And Burt Reynolds is all like, I'm sick of Captain Chaos. I'm done with it. He, like, rips the mask off his head and slams it down.
And all this water comes out of his jacket.
Yeah, smacks him in his pocket. Yeah, there's his jacket pockets filled with water or whatever. And he's all like, I don't care. Because I always wanted to be, and he dips down, pops up, Captain USA. Now he's got like a blue mask on his head. I always wanted to be Captain USA. And of course, everybody laughs and starts hugging it out because, like, oh man, I can't be mad at you. You're my best friend in the world, whatever. And everybody's laughing, having a good time. And then they show the celebration at the end. And the guy who's trying to stop it, he shows up, and they're all like, well, dude, you know, yeah, come on, stop being such a tightwad. You know, here, have a cigar, whatever. And he doesn't have a place to light it. And Roger Moore then tells him,
Go in my car.
Go use the lighter in my car. And he's like, well, just wait till he touches that lighter. And you're seeing him sitting in the car smoking the cigar from the driver's seat, right hand drive. And he goes over and gets in the passenger side and says,
Did you use that?
How
lighter?
did you light that? Did you use that? It's like, yeah, light right there. And he pushes it. And boom, gets ejected. Because it's like, okay, dude, you forgot. The whole thing is triggered by it's got to have pressure in the seat. It's got to feel somebody in the seat.
Right.
So in fact, he got in on the driver's side and lit it from the driver's side. He's not getting punched out because obviously that's not the ejector seat. And it's not even going to trigger the ejector seat because nobody's sitting in it.
Right.
The system says there's nobody in the seat. So, you know, so this way too, if you're driving and you want to light your cigarette or whatever, you can still do it and not suddenly now have your passenger seat gone and the hole in your roof and everything else. But, you know, so the Roger Moore gets ejected into the Marina water. And, but, you know, it was just a great, happy, feel-good ending for a movie that was just a good, happy, feel-good movie.
Yeah, the happy, feel-good movie throughout the whole thing. It's something that I would love to see if it would ever be re-released in the theaters. Would be great.
And that's something I think we can really talk about as the show progresses and evolves and everything too. You know, there are so many movies that they try and do reboots of and remakes. I'd really love to see some of these, you know, studios maybe just for short limited releases, maybe like a month or so, releasing some of these older movies back to the big screen.
Yeah,
because some of these movies, especially some of the stuff in the late 70s.
This is by far a movie that cannot be redone.
No, you cannot redo it. You cannot recapture that.
Because even honestly, the Cannonball Run 2 was not as good as this movie.
I mean, it was really still enjoyable. It was still enjoyable. I think if you wanted to have yourself a little double feature, you know, in your living room one day, watching 1 and 2 is going to be fun. You're going to laugh in the second one. Right. There's still plenty of funny stuff, but excuse me. Oh, I hate that. But, you know, you've also got some additional cameos. Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. make it back, but they also managed to bring Frank Sinatra in for a small part in it. You know, so again, you get the you know, you expand on the Rat Pack's involvement, and he plays a nice little funny role. You get Ricardo Montalban makes an appearance as Jamie Farr's dad.
Yes.
So again, I mean, they
play with it.
And
I mean, it wasn't as good. It wasn't as good though. It
was fun, but it was nowhere near as good as the first. No, and I'm glad they didn't try doing a third. I'm glad because that would have. It's like, you know, we had a great one, then we had a good follow up. But now it's done. The well is dry. Right. Just leave it as it is.
Matt, I don't think we can say anything else about this movie.
No, we can't. We can't. We could, but at that point, we just be quoting lines and. But so again, if you have not seen this movie, I know we gave away a lot of spoilers in it, and that's going to be about the show. It's called "Have You Seen It Lately?" Not have you seen it? Have you seen it lately? So it's mainly for those of us who have seen it that want to reminisce and relive it and talk about why we loved it, maybe what we didn't like about it, so and so forth. But if you haven't seen it before, check it out, rent it, stream it, pick it up. Unfortunately, as great as a movie is, you can probably pick it up on Amazon for probably less than $15.
Yes.
You know, but it's definitely worth a watch. You will enjoy it. You will love it. You will laugh constantly. There is no bad part of this movie.
No,
there are parts that are way better than others, but I mean, you have great moments, even better moments, and excellent, can't possibly think of a way to top it moments in this movie.
That's true.
And it is definitely, again, good popcorn movie. So we got to wrap this up because I know Danny J has a very busy day today. So I want to again thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
And please, if you haven't already, please check out the other shows in the DJB production stable. The flagship show, That Way Cool Wrestling Show, with Danny J, LeGrand Jackson, Charles Gregory, and superfan Mark Lindsay. Talk about a lot of old school wrestling. Lately, they've been getting a lot of great wrestlers and sports entertainment, figures in there. They've had some ring announcers and such coming on doing the show live with them, doing great interviews. DJs After Dark with myself, Danny J, Rob Cannon, Fast Eddie C, and Dr. Rock Ray Thomas, a group of current and former DJs talking about life through the eyes of a DJ.
Yes.
It's a great, funny show. It's not a technical thing, and we're not talking about equipment and how to be a DJ and being black. It is us sitting around and having great conversations about stuff that we've experienced on the job, in the field, what we've seen people do great and bad and everything else.
And also literally the world according to us. what we
recording
how we
does.
feel. Yeah, what we feel about certain things.
Sometimes, I mean, we a lot of times get off topic and we just start talking about random stuff, and it is a very funny show. You will definitely enjoy it.
It is.
Capes not included for all of our comic book, superheroes, sci-fi fans. You definitely want to check that out.
Correct.
And coming soon, the Devereaux Sports Show. It's in pre-production, and we'll obviously have more information of that once it actually gets into production, and as far as who the cast is and who's going to be presenting it. So thank you for watching this. We hope you've enjoyed the show.
Yes.
Like the channel, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications so you know when we've released new episodes. You're not going to get flooded with notifications and emails because, again, we tend to release these shows in bulk, between 2 to 4 episodes at one shot. So and we'll record, you might once a week get a notification. Boom, DJB Productions and this particular show has loaded up a new episode. Go check it out.
Right.
You're not going to get slammed with it 2, 3, 4 times a day, every day with some of these other YouTubers out there, with no offense to them. You got your thing that release, several shows a day, a show every day, and everything else. So we don't want to flood you, and we don't want you to get sick of us. For sure. So for myself, Matt Sunner, Danny J, the entire DJB Productions family, thank you for watching.
Yes.
And if you haven't seen your favorite movie lately, stream it, grab it off the DVD rack, pop yourself some popcorn, sit down, remember why you loved it. And as Danny J would say,
remember,
tell everybody else in the room,
remember, silence is golden.
So sit down, shut up, and let me watch my favorite movie, you bastards. So on that note, have a wonderful day.